Hello and welcome to Story Structure. This video is divided into 3 parts. For this first part, I want to talk about why you should plan your book in advance. No, really. If you've gotten this far, you've probably heard about panting versus plotting. Plotting is when you write out the plot of the book in advance, you make an outline, etc. Panting is writing by the seat of your pants and making it up as you go. The best approach is probably somewhere in the middle, but you should do what works best for you as an author, because anyone who tells you that there's one sure way to write a book is lying. But only to a point. Because panting is fun, but you should plan ahead for 2 major reasons. The first is that focusing on story rather than freeform meandering as you write creates better books that you can write in less time. And I teach a whole separate workshop on that. Second, you'll reach a stage in your career where you really have to think ahead. Either you're submitting books to publishers on spec, meaning you have to submit synopses or at least a really strong elevator pitch, or you're planning your release schedule and doing advanced promo, in which case you need to know what your next few books are going to be about and in order to promote them, or you need to know what the next book in the series is or who the characters are going to be with enough lead time that you can do promotional work for them. How much planning you do in advance is really up to you as a writer, but if you're here, you probably want to know a little bit about how to think about planning a book. The meat of this video is going to be this part 2, which is the basic plot beats. Now, I've developed these plot beats from 5 different sources and a few other things that I've read about how to plot books, and pulled together a system that I think works really well as a framework, which means that these plot beats are not set in stone. You can move them around, you can change them, you can add more, you can subtract some, whatever you think will work for you. But what I'm trying to show here are the basic things that happen in every book that you should think about in terms of both the actual plot of the book and the events that happen and the emotional arcs of the characters. And thinking about both of those things in advance of when you write can help you write a stronger book. So I'm going to walk through all of these plot beats with you now. As an illustrative example, I've chosen Disney's Beauty and the Beast movie, and I'm going to show how the beats that I have come up with align with the plot of that movie, kind of. You'll notice that there are some cases where it might feel a little shoehorned in, which is basically because a movie, particularly a Disney movie that's on the short side, won't have the same emotional depth that a novel will. So not all of the emotional beats line up quite as nicely as I would like. But I wanted to pick an example that would be something that most of you have at least been exposed to. You probably know the plot or have seen the movie a few dozen times like I have, and you know roughly what the story is. And I wanted to sort of give examples to show what each of these beats really means. So first we have the opening. This is an opening image that's like a snapshot of the characters and their struggle at the beginning of the story, and it sets the tone for the novel. It includes any setup necessary to show where the characters are in his or her life, or what he or she is missing, or what their goals are. It introduces the theme of the story, if there is one, and it introduces the protagonists. So in Beauty and the Beast, the beginning of the movie, that opening sequence with the really fancy stained glass art is explaining the curse to the prince and giving the Beast's backstory. But the opening beat in this movie is really the song Belle, where Belle explains the status quo of her life and what she wants, which is to escape this provincial life in which she feels she's been trapped. Next we have the meet cute or catalyst. The story begins at the moment when the status quo changes. What this means is that there's some kind of inciting incident at the very beginning of your novel that sets everything in motion. It could be that someone died, it could be a wedding, it could be someone inherited a lot of money, whatever it is, it could be something that has changed the lives of the characters in a way that's irrevocable. It's some kind of left turn, some kind of change where it's different from what has been happening up to this point. This could be the moment when the protagonists in a romance novel meet, but whatever it is, it has to get the story rolling. If this were a hero's journey based novel, and I'm not going to get into what hero's journey is here in the interest of time, but if you're familiar with it, this is the call to action. This is the moment when someone has showed up to say, you are the chosen one and must come with me to help save the world. In Beauty and the Beast, this is when Belle's father gets lost and ends up at the Beast Castle. This is really the moment in the story where there's no going back. Something has changed significantly and we're off to the races with the story. Next we have the no way, or the debate. And what is happening here is the characters are reacting to this change that has just happened. And change is scary, so you can show that here. In a romance novel, this could be the moment where the character says, well, he's cute and all, but I'm not going to fall in love. This could also be an internal debate in which the characters wonder if they really have what it takes to answer the call or to tackle the challenges of the story. In a hero's journey, this is when the hero outright refuses the call to action. Like, I understand that the world is in trouble, but there's no way that I can help out. I'd have to stay here and save my family farm, or whatever the situation is. In Beauty and the Beast, this is about the moment when Belle volunteers herself to take her father's place, but she finds the castle terrifying. There's no happiness to be found here. She's just gonna... It's scary, and dungeons and talking wardrobes and all that. But now we're on to Act 2. And what I probably should have stated at the beginning of this walkthrough with the beats is that I'm assuming a rough 3-act structure to a novel, meaning that the first act is really the setup, the story gets started. The middle is the media section of the book, which is where all of the events transpire leading up to the climax, and then Act 3 is the climax and denouement and resolution of the story and everything wrapping up. So now we're at the point of the beginning of Act 2. This is a plot thrust that takes us into the second act of the story, or the first major threshold that the characters have to cross. So the protagonist might make a choice. They realize that they cannot just walk away from each other. Something has happened in their meeting where, they've connected in a way that makes walking away impossible. And at this point, there's no turning back. We're at a point in the story where the status quo has been irrevocably changed, and nothing can go back to how it was before the story started. In Beauty and the Beast, this is Be Our Guest. Belle decides to make the most of her situation, and thinks that the castle's pretty interesting because, plates and dishes are singing to her. Next we have the Inkling. This is when the characters begin to understand that their defining misbelief is false, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of the video, or that something that they understand about themselves is untrue. This should relate to the story's theme and set up how the characters will change throughout the story, so this is really an emotional beat. Or this is the beginning of the journey or trial. What this is an inkling that this all might work out, that there's a reason to be hopeful, and there's a reason to be forward-looking. In Beauty and the Beast, this is a literal inkling that there's something romantic between Belle and the Beast. There's something there that wasn't there before. It's just sort of just a little thought that things might work out. Next we have Deepening Desire. Each protagonist gets a glimpse of who the other is. In a romance novel, this is how the romance novel develops, and the characters see themselves for who they truly are rather than just what they present to the world, so they sort of get a glimpse with the curtains raised. This desire doesn't have to be romantic or sexual, but it could be a desire or drive to reach a certain goal. So if you're not writing romance, this could be a desire to some kind of achievement, a greater conviction to go forward and try to save the world, whatever that ends up being. In Beauty and the Beast, this is the moment when the Beast gives Belle the library. And I don't know about you, but as a big reader, it seems to me that the greatest romantic gesture of all is to give someone a room full of books. And then we arrive at the promise of the premise. And this is the moment where everyone thinks, hey, maybe this could work. This is the characters exploring their new world or each other, or perhaps they give in to a temptation that they've been trying to resist. This is the reader getting a giddy thrill about the ride they're on. This is the moment that is the most exciting. It's a real high point in the story. In Beauty and the Beast, this is when Belle and the Beast have their romantic night together and they dance and there's a beautiful ball gown and they're getting along really well and there's romance and the pots are singing and everything is great. But then we reach the midpoint. And what the midpoint reveals is that the promise of the premise is a false high. So everything is great, except it's not. So, for example, the protagonist might get something they want, but it's not how they expected it to be. Meaning, there could be a monkey's paw situation where they get something they've wanted for a long time, but it comes at a terrible cost. This could be the moment that the characters fall in love, but then you, the writer, pull the rug out from under them. Or it could be that this is a temptation away from the true path. In a hero's journey sort of story, this is a moment when the character is distracted from their goal, where they might be, teased away from pursuing what they've been sent to save. In Beauty and the Beast, this is the moment when Belle sees that her father is sick and in trouble, and the Beast lets her go because he loves her, but he realizes that he does so at a cost to himself because it means that the curse won't be lifted. Next, doubts or bad guys close in. This could be that the external bad guys achieve a victory, but internal bad guys should creep in too. This could be doubt or jealousy or fear or anything that any kind of emotion the character could have that will prevent them from either finding love or achieving their goal. Think about the no way beat that you wrote before. So think about why can't things work out for the protagonist, or why do they think they can't work out? And this is when the high of the midpoint really starts to fall apart. In Beauty and the Beast, there are literal bad guys who close in the mob song, and this is basically Gaston intervening in Belle and the Beast's potential happiness. Next, we have Deepening Doubt or Retreat. In romance, the intimacy between the characters may grow, but the seeds that you planted in the first act are starting to sprout as well. So all of the characters' damage is coming to the forefront now. All of their past, their emotions, the things that prevented them from finding happiness before this novel are showing up now. The characters may retreat from each other as a result. Or they may doubt their own resolve to keep going forward to achieve a goal. This is a doubt that is ruining their hope, essentially. So in Beauty and the Beast, Belle tries to stop Gaston from going to the castle, but ultimately she's helpless because what can one woman do against this huge mob? Next, we have Shields Up. This is when the characters put their shields on because something happens to confirm their no way. So they're essentially closing themselves off to the promise of the novel. So some examples of this could be, I don't believe in love, or will never love again, or don't deserve love because I did something bad in the past and don't deserve to be happy. Or I had my one shot at love in the past and I screwed it up. Or I had my one shot at love in the past and he's dead now, so I won't be able to love again. Or I knew better than to believe in love or to love again or think that I deserve love because when I let my guard down, something terrible happens. People I care about get hurt. I get hurt. Whatever it is. This is a moment that sort of confirms all of the characters' doubts about themselves. In Beauty and the Beast, the mob arrives at the castle. This sort of confirms for the Beast that there's no plausible future. Next is the breakup or all is lost moment. This is a dark moment that confirms the character's fundamental misbelief, and again, we'll get there in a minute. The characters hold on to their fears, flaws, or wounds instead of opening their hearts. So this is an emotional beat where they're thinking about, all of the damage that they brought to the novel at the beginning, their no way point, all the doubts they've had, rear their heads here. There doesn't need to be a literal breakup, although there can be, but this is a moment that shows the readers that this might not all work out. And even in a romance novel where the ending is a pretty foregone conclusion, that everyone will live happily ever after, this is still a moment when the reader begins to doubt that things will actually work out. And the best romance novels do that convincingly. In Beauty and the Beast, this is when the last petal falls from the rose, and the beast gives up hope. Next, we have the dark night of the soul. So this is the moment when protagonists hit bottom. The characters wallow in helplessness or turmoil, and they give up on hope. This is the moment when Gaston injures the beast and Belle thinks he's dead. And I want to put a little bit of emphasis on this point in particular because I think it's one that tends to get overlooked. This is something that my agent in particular always puts a big emphasis on, is you have to have this dark moment. This moment where the characters feel like they'll never be happy and everything is terrible and there's no way to fix the mess they've caused. And you have to have this moment so that it contrasts with what's about to come. So now we're on to Act 3. This is when the characters wake up from their dark moment. They choose love and hope over fear. They get a fresh idea or a new inspiration or a new way to tackle the bad guys, and they choose to try again. So this is when the beast revives and becomes a man. Next we have the grand gesture or the climax. This is when everything comes to a head. The stakes are the highest. They might even be life or death, although not necessarily. The protagonist takes a major risk to defeat the bad guys and win love. All of the subplots come together in this moment too. And the important thing about the climax is it's really the most exciting part of the story. It's when everything comes together and it should be a real high point. In Beauty and the Beast, this is when Belle and the Beast kiss, or when Belle confesses that she loves him, and then like light flies out of his hands and he stands up and he survives and there's glitter and it's amazing. Next we have the finale, or what the whole heart looks like, or the happily ever after in a romance novel. So this is where everything wraps up with a final image that shows us that the characters are together and can take on any challenges again. Or that's what it would be in a lot of genre fiction, where we're reassured at the end that everything has worked out and it will continue to work out, so that if something bad happens in the future, these characters can take it on. And that's not always true in literary fiction. It's not even always true in genre fiction. It could be that a protagonist has sacrificed themselves for the greater good, but we still know at the end of the book that even though this character that we've grown attached to over the course of the story has died, the world is saved and the sacrifice was for good. Or it could be that a major character has died but is in a better place now, or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be a happy ending per se, but it should give us a glimpse of what the world will be like after the end of the events of the novel, so that we know what the world looks like moving forward. This is when Belle and the prince dance at the end of the movie. So we have this final scene that shows us they're in love, all of the objects are people again, Belle's father is there, and everything is happy. That's our happily ever after, sort of shown in a tableau at the end of the movie. Whether or not you include an epilogue is entirely up to you and is totally optional. Some readers really love epilogues. I personally love an epilogue, but not all readers do, not all writers do. They're not required. But if you do include an epilogue, it should just be a glimpse of what the characters are doing a little ways down the road. It's basically to reassure us that everything is fine, that things worked out at the end of the novel. Now I wanted to give another example, this time with a novel, and I picked Jane Eyre because I'm hoping that it's a book that you've all either read or have at least seen a movie version of, and you have a rough memory of what the story is like so that I can relate the plot beats to it. Jane Eyre is one of my personal favorite books, and so I know it really well, so I can talk about it too, is another way to give a good example here. So in Jane Eyre, we have the opening, which is Jane's cruel aunt sends Jane to school. She has a miserable time at Lowood School, including befriending a girl who dies. Now, I'm calling it the opening, but this is the first 10 or 12 chapters in the book. It's actually a pretty long stretch of text. But the point of this whole sequence is to show Jane's background and who she is as a person and why she acts the way she does. And so I'm calling it the opening because it sort of establishes what the status quo for Jane is going into the meat of the story. So the meet cute or catalyst is when Jane is hired to be a governess for a girl named Adele and goes to Thornfield Hall to live, and she meets Adele's guardian, the dark and brooding Mr. Rochester. The no way point is Jane falls for Mr. Rochester through a series of encounters, but he's her boss and also of a different social class, so she knows that there's no way that'll ever work out. But we're on to Act 2, when a group of guests, including Blanche Ingram, show up at Thornfield Hall. So the inkling is that Jane and Rochester have some moments, there's a series of moments that are really like tense and delicious through the story, where Jane starts to fall for Mr. Rochester and has real feelings for him, but she's convinced that he's in love with Blanche because Blanche is his social equal and Jane is not. Then there's a deepening desire, and this happens when Rochester proposes. He loves Jane after all, he wants them to be happy together, and Jane is giddy and happy. And the promise of the premise is the wedding. So here's a potential happily ever after for these two characters who have fallen in love over the course of them working together, and now they're going to get married. But the midpoint is when John Mason shows up at the church and says, well, actually, Mr. Rochester is already married, and his wife is the arsonist who lives in the attic at Thornfield. And thus we learn that Rochester was trying to be a bigamist, but he's still in love with Jane, so he tries to talk Jane into staying with him and becoming his mistress, but Jane is like, no, I actually deserve better than that, and she decides to leave Thornfield Hall. So now we have doubts that anything between Jane and Rochester will work out. Next, we have the deepening doubt or retreat. So Jane meets St. John Rivers and becomes a teacher. Her shields up is that she finds out that she's an heiress and can live independently, so she has the financial means that she doesn't need any of these men anymore. The breakup, or all is lost, is when St. John proposes, and thus throws an obstacle into Jane's reunification with Rochester, because now here's this other man who wants to marry her. And St. John is a fine man, he's morally upstanding, he's just kind of boring. And then we reach the dark night of the soul. And this is when Jane's about to potentially leave on this missionary trip with St. John, which would cement her choice to choose one man over the other. But she hears Rochester calling to her in the night and worries that something terrible has happened. So now we're on to Act 3. Jane returns to Thornfield Hall and finds that it has burned down. The grand gesture is when she finds Rochester and he's now blind and he's lost the use of one of his arms and his fortunes have been severely destroyed, but his wife is now dead. They confess their feelings for each other, and then we get the finale of Jane telling us, reader, I married him. So those are the plot beats, or a rough approximation. So before you go, I wanted to talk about some character stuff. So before you even get into really plotting what your story is going to be, you should know who your characters are. And one thing I want to emphasize is that the obvious stuff is probably the least important. Online character sheets are largely garbage because they only focus on superficial stuff like hair and eye color and not on the internal stuff that makes for more compelling characters. Like, if a character is blonde or has purple hair, it doesn't really affect who they are as a character. But first, you should note the physical stuff so that you can write down, you write physical descriptions consistently. But like, write that down on a piece of paper and then move on. Here's the more important stuff. First, the basics. What's the character's age, their background, meaning their race, their home region, their family. All of those kinds of things can influence how a character acts, how they behave, how they speak. What is their occupation? And then what is one defining personality trait? And by this I mean something really broad, like are they a type A? Are they really high strung? Are they really laid back? Are they really focused? Are they really scatterbrained? Like something like that, that's sort of a defining trait of the character. It shouldn't be their whole character, but it's something that you can sort of, it's like a skeleton that you can build the rest of the character around. Next, we have a thumbnail sketch. What does the character want? What do they believe? And where are they in their life? This is kind of your GMC or goal, motivation, conflict moment to think about. What is the character's goal? Why are they motivated to reach that goal? And what is preventing them from reaching that goal? So what do they want out of life and why aren't they getting it yet? And how does the story help them get it? Next is a deep-seated desire. What is something the character has wanted for a long time? What is their greatest desire? this could be something broad, like they want to save a town or save a business or save the country. It's something that's really driving them forward. Or another good example of that is from Bridgerton, which I watched recently. In that, Daphne Bridgerton's deep desire is because she grew up in a house with two parents who loved each other and all these siblings, and it was a really happy home. She wants that for herself as well. She wants to fall in love and find a good husband and have a lot of children and have this happy home for herself to recreate what she had in her childhood. And it's complicated by the fact that she falls for and then marries a man in Simon who has no desire to have children at all and is in fact dead set against having them. And that's a great conflict because it sets them at cross purposes. Because now here's Daphne, who has one thing that she's wanted above all other things in her entire life, and she has married a man who tells her that she cannot have that. And so that's what sets up the real conflict of that story. And finally, I want to talk about the defining misbelief. This is what holds the character back. So what is it that they believe about the world or about themselves that is incorrect? Some examples of that are, I am unworthy of love. This could be for whatever reason. Maybe you've written a protagonist who is essentially a good person, but believes that they don't deserve love for whatever reason. Maybe they made a mistake in their past. Maybe they feel like their time has come and gone. Or maybe they believe that love is not a thing. That's a pretty common one in a lot of romances where they feel like love doesn't exist. I've never witnessed it with my own eyes. It's just a crock that's in books and movies. It's not a real thing, whatever that is. Or it could be something like, I can fix anything. But as soon as they go out to fix something, they make a hash of it and make the situation worse. Whatever that thing is that is preventing them from really functioning with the world or engaging with the world in a positive way. Or whatever is preventing them from feeling hope. So think about how the character must change in order to overcome the main obstacle in the story. So it can't just be they have to change their attitude or change their behavior. They have to change something fundamental within themselves to overcome that obstacle. And that's really the emotional arc of the story. And so just to wrap up, a couple more things. First, there is a handout that accompanies this workshop. If you can download it from my website at katemcmurray.com/workshops. It is a novel planning kit that includes a character sheet with all of the stuff that I've just talked about, and also beat sheets with all of the beats and very brief descriptions of each. And then before you go, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more writing help videos. There's not much here now, but there will be more very soon. And so smash that subscribe button, as the kids say. And you can also subscribe to my Patreon for bonus features like handouts, longer videos, and other cool stuff at patreon.com/KateMcMurray. There's not a lot there now, but there will be very soon. I've got a bunch of stuff in the works and hope to have it up shortly. And that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching.